do what your artistic impulse tells you to do. The problem that we have in the West, and this is really Western culture, is that we don't have a history of using words as works of art. That's something you do have in China, going back 1,500 years at least. The idea that the main art form is calligraphy, that's a Chinese idea. And actually, it's also an idea connected to Islamic calligraphy, but in a different way. But the Chinese invented the idea that writing is an expression of your soul. They invented that idea more than 1,000 years before anybody in the West ever thought of it. And they did that because of two main things. One is they evolved calligraphy towards using a brush on paper or on silk. So a brush is very different to a pen. It's soft, it's very, you can really do a lot of manipulation and change with it. You can really express, from the heaviest lines to the finest lines. And paper was cheap, so it was easy to experiment in China. That's one thing. And the second thing in China was that they had this process of choosing their government officials by imperial examination. And they've started those imperial examinations in the year 124. And they only stopped in 1906. All this time they were doing this. And what was the main thing you had to do if you wanted to pass the examination? You had to have good calligraphy. And the reason was they felt that they could tell from your calligraphy whether you had the discipline and the honesty and the character to be a good administrator or not. Whoa. That's a Chinese concept.
This sounds so cool now that I listen to it. This is so cool, seriously. Wow.
Yeah, it is. Well, and so what this did was that it focused Chinese attention on the ability of handwriting to form character and to reflect character. And we would call that graphology now. In the West, I can look at your handwriting and I tell you whether you're a psychopathic murderer or you're a very nice father or, whatever. We can interpret things from your handwriting, so we say. But the Chinese have believed this for more than 1,000 years. And we do not have that in our tradition. What we have in our long tradition of art is painting and sculpture and architecture. And calligraphy was a kind of minor art serving practical purposes. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't a major art. And so even now in our modern times, we don't have the mental apparatus for looking. I don't mean you and me, we're calligraphers, so we do. But the general public does not have the apparatus up here for looking at calligraphy and understanding what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Whereas the Chinese and the Japanese, if they're educated, they do. Yeah, it's a very different mentality.
Do you think this can happen for us as well?
I'm certain that it's in the process, because graffiti is one of the great art forms of our times. It's a truly astonishing art form. And the problem there is only that, if they paint it on a canvas to sell it in a gallery, that's kind of considering selling out to the bourgeoisie. They want to paint it on the walls of the train station. That's the real fighting spirit of graffiti.
But I know a lot of people, including myself, and I guess a lot of the younger generation, there are people who are from graffiti, they come into calligraphy,
Yeah. Is that the Calligraffiti movement that you mean?
No, not exactly, but I just know people which they've been doing graffiti, and at one point they decide they go straight to calligraphy. Calligraffiti is something that I know what it is, but I don't truly understand maybe.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Why do you think some of these graffiti people go over to calligraphy? What is their reason?
I don't know. For example, for me, I had love for letters throughout my life. And so at one point I was also doing graffiti. For me, I discovered calligraphy when I was 23. And when I discovered it, because I had this love for letters, I just knew I want to do this, because all my life I wanted to do beautiful letters. And I discovered calligraphy via this guy, which I mentioned earlier, Tius One. And
Yeah.
this is what, like, when I watched his video, he was doing kind of his own fracture textura. It's not the traditional, but, you know, personal one. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I just wanted to be able to do something that is my own calligraphy, my letters. And that's how it started. So I guess maybe it's the same for other people, but maybe not.
Did you do graffiti before?
Well, I was
as a teenager.
Yeah, teenager, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, it's love for the letters, but yeah, I haven't done long time ago. And yeah, I know definitely a lot of people, which a lot of them, they've been doing it before, but doing calligraphy now. And I know also people which are doing both now at the same time, graffiti and calligraphy.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, there's no, again, in the world of the arts, you do whatever you want, you know, there's no rules here. And I think the thing about writing that's maybe different than our other art forms, painting and sculpture, is that almost all cultures have it. There are very few cultures now that don't have writing, unless you're in the middle of the Amazonian rainforest, perhaps. But even there, they're writing Latin letters now. So it joins people together around the world. And I think, in a sense, you know, we live in a time where globalization is a big thing and a big problem, of course, and a big possibility. But it's something that we can create a global community of calligraphers, and we are, in fact, doing that right now as we speak, you and I. And so that's something quite fascinating, to have a global community of painters. Yes, I'm sure those exist too, of course, but why not calligraphy also? I mean, it's just as powerful a form of human expression as anything else. No, I think that's the point.
I think it's the best form. It's better than the
Yeah, we would say that, wouldn't we? Yeah. And so we do, that's one of the things that I do, is this thing called a brush with silence. I just posted it on my Instagram this week. A brush with silence is a performance that I've developed where we've had it in about 10 countries now, where about 15 calligraphers from different cultures, we come together in one space, dark space, and everybody sits at a table and simply writes his or her own language. So Chinese, Japanese, Hebrew, Greek, Arabic, Latin, English, German, Cyrillic, Thai, Tibetan, whatever we can find. We have those calligraphers sitting there and writing in their own scripts, and everybody's together. And it's an amazing symbol of the power of writing, but also the power of people to live peacefully together. So that's a real mission that we have as calligraphers, is to say that we can do this, world. We can live peacefully. It will work if we just try.
And why is it called silence?
A brush with silence. It's a play on words in English. When I say I have a brush with death, it means I came very close to death. When I have a brush with excitement, it means I come brushing, I come close to something. It touches my skin. So a brush with silence is you come in and everybody is silently writing, some with brushes and some with pens.
Oh.
So we're doing it on the 7th of May. I'm going to make a little plug here because you'll be able to watch it on either YouTube or Zoom. We don't know yet, but we're going to advertise that everybody in the world can watch on that evening, 7th of May, 15 calligraphers in Bruges,